Hey guys, how's it going? So still not being in the state of knowing exactly what I'm going to do with these vlogs. I thought today, it being Thursday, I would maybe do a little concert calendar. Might be kind of fun. And obviously I'm not going to do all the shows because that'd be way too many, but I'm just going to highlight a few. And yeah, we'll kind of see how it goes. And then there might be a little rant / discussion at the end, but we'll see. So it is Thursday. It is March 29th. So this would be for tomorrow, the 30th, Friday, and Saturday, the 31st. And we're going to start with Friday. We have at Main Street in Hopkins, Hit Faced, who are a cover band not dissimilar to Off Duty Astronauts. I've never seen them, but I've seen some of their videos, and they're good. I mean, they're worth checking out. Plus, their singer went to school with our singer Pam, so they kind of know each other, so that's kind of weird. Then we have at Mayslax. Oh, and that show starts at 9. That's at 9 to 1 at Main Street in Hopkins. At Mayslax, starting at 9, is Old Voltage, which is an AC/DC tribute band, who I have seen, and they're good. They do a good job. And they have special guest Broken Class, who apparently are another classic rock cover band, and they says here, according to our good friends at Facebook, that Broken Class will be starting the night with 90 minutes of classic rock that you won't want to miss. So I would, yeah, I mean, if you're a big classic rock person, I would definitely check that out. That should be good. And that starts at 9. Then, over south here, a place called Mortimer's, on the corner of Lyndale and Franklin in South Minneapolis. Bar that's been around forever. They just renovated, and I think they just put in a stage. I don't know if they had live music before, but there's been a ton of shows there. I have not seen any there yet, but I've heard it's good. So, but the show Friday night. Doors are at 7. It's a $5 cover, and you get The Stress of Her Regard, The Revenge Wedding, and a band that I've seen a couple times and happen to be friends with the guitar player, which is Night of Joy. And you'll know if you've been following my 10 albums thing that Night of Joy was one of them, because that first album is absolutely great and you should pick it up. I mean, not saying that you shouldn't pick up the second album or any of the singles that they're putting out, but, and of course by pick up I mean download off the internet, because physical media doesn't exist anymore. So that's going on at Mortimer's. Stress for Regard, Revenge Wedding, Night of Joy. At Mortimer's at 7, doors are at 7, $5. Here somewhere. Then we have the show that I will more than likely be going to at our old friend the Terminal Bar, which I have not been to in a very long time. For someone who used to go there pretty much on a monthly basis, I've not been there in quite a while. But again, that's the 7 o'clock doors, 5 o'clock. Wow, it's been a long day. $5 cover charge. And you have Flyby and the Leadheads, who I haven't seen, but it's David Hardy, the guitar player and bass player, formerly of Outlaw Saint, also of Masters of the Sky. So it's another band with them, and they've got a different bass player and I believe a female vocalist. So it's those guys. It's Fatal Caliber, who are another just good straight ahead rock band. Iridius, who has been going nuts with shows. I was talking to someone over the weekend on Saturday and just saying, yeah, I mean, I'd never heard of this band. I see them open up for Mushroom Head in October, and next thing you know, they're on like every single bill, which is awesome because they're a great band. You should really check them out. But yeah, it's kind of bizarre how that happened. And then a band I've never heard of called Three Left, and they're the headliner, so I'm assuming they're from out of town. And this is a Deranged Entertainment, Jamie Louise, Deranged Underground. It's a radio show, I believe, on IPO radio every Wednesday night. I would listen more, but unfortunately I practice Wednesday night, so I can't really do that. But I have listened to it. It's good, and Jamie's always a joy. So head down there. She'll probably have shots of cold cock whiskey available, because that's kind of what she does. And then the big one, the one that everybody's been looking forward to and talking about, it was mentioned many times last weekend in the shows, and that is the Endless Rain Fly Fishing in a Brazilian Creek Tour. It kicks off tomorrow night in Annandale, and then through May they're doing dates. They're doing Annandale and Duluth this weekend. The 13th and 14th of April, they're doing 2 shows in 2 different places in Fargo. Then the 25th, 26th, 27th, and then the 25th through the 29th of April, they're doing Des Moines, Kansas City, Omaha, and Cedar Rapids. And then jumping to May 11th and 12th, they're doing Chippewa Falls and Madison. The 25th, and then the 25th through the 27th, they're doing Rice Lake, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and Green Bay. So I don't know if you can see that and read the actual venues. But it's Endless Rain, who I've talked about before, fronted by Mike Bloodfist, who also does Blood Fist Promotions. But he's retiring from that this year. They're actually going to call it quits after 3 years, 5 years, I don't remember, with a final blowout at, I believe, the Caboose, a final terminally ill metal fest. I went to the first one 2 years ago. I didn't go to last year's, but I have to go to this one. I believe that's October 13th. And I believe it's at the Caboose, and of course the lineup's going to be killer. Just like the lineup at the show. So this is the tour kickoff, and I mean, you're obviously going to have local support in all the different cities you go to, which, you know, is how you build community. Hopefully those bands will come here, and we can go there, and blah, blah, blah. But the lineup for the show tomorrow night in Annandale is sick. So you have Mordic, which is fronted by a guy named Trent Horsehead. That's what he goes by. And he used to be the singer in Living Through Ghosts, and that's how I know him. But this is his new band. You have Blood War, you have Dreams Set Fire, Digital Homicide, Solace and Murder, and Infamous Memories before Endless Rain. So that's going to be a killer show. I wish I could go. I wish I could get to Annandale. I've never been. It's at the A-Town Roadhouse, which I've never been to. But yeah, that is going to be insane. Doors are at 6, and it's a free show. You're getting all that for free. You don't have to pay a cent. That is ridiculous. That is, yeah. So that's Friday. So that's some of the highlights of Friday. I mean, obviously, again, there's probably a lot more going on, but those are the highlights. I mean, those are the shows that I'd probably go to. I mean, one of them I'm probably going to go to. Anyway. So then Saturday. So if you've recovered from Friday, what do we have Saturday? Looking at, if you're looking for something to do Saturday afternoon, it looks like there's a British Invasion tribute at Bunkers called 2 If by C. The number 2 If by the letter C. And that starts at 3:30. It's 3:30 to 6:30. Music starts at 3:30, kid friendly, and there's a $5 cover. And also appearing, there's a Billy Joel tribute and a modern blues tribute, plus one more to be announced. So that should be interesting. That should be, yeah, it should be interesting. Huh, I may have to, if my Saturday afternoon is free, I might have to look into that. So we have that. And then Saturday night at the Terminal Bar, we have Bobalicious? Not sure how to pronounce it, but there's a flyer there. Also featuring Stag and Logan Zeros. And they're calling this their pre-Easter show, because Easter is on Sunday. $5 cover, I'm sure, starts at 9. So that should be good, because Terminal shows are mostly good. I mean, Terminal's just a fun bar anyway. At the Doghouse in Maplewood, you have one, which they claim is the only tribute to Metallica, which I know is not true, but I've seen videos of these guys, haven't seen them live. I would assume they're good. I mean, if you're calling himself the only tribute to Metallica, you better be damn good. So that's going on at the Doghouse. Oh, apparently it's their 10-year anniversary tour. So this band has been around for 10 years. Wow, that's kind of impressive. And no other information, but it looks like 8 to midnight. So pretty standard night. What else do we have Saturday? We have at Famous Dave's, starting at 9, we have the good, the bad, and the funky. And again, this is one that I've never seen. I've heard a lot about, though. I want to check them out at some point. Yeah, it looks like they're just a funk soul R&B band, which I'm not going to complain about at all. Yeah, and that's at Famous Dave's, and I don't know if there's a cover charge or not. It does not say, but yeah, if you wanna get your groove on, heading down to Famous Dave's Saturday night, check them out. And then we have at the Driftwood, $9:30 show, $5 cover. We have Repeat Bias, 52 Girls, and Extraterrestrial Trials. Yeah, no idea about any of those bands, but you know, it's at the Driftwood, and Driftwood is a cool little place. So I would say, you know, if you know those bands, obviously head down there and support them. You know, as I've always said, just do what you can. Just do what you can. And then the final thing I have for Saturday is this little number right here at the Hexagon, which is becoming a new metal home. And it's Disinter, I believe, from Illinois. And then Nailed Shut, Craig, and Krog? Craig. I don't know how you pronounce it. Krawg. Craig. I've seen them, guys. They're powerful on stage. They're good. And Beauty of Decay. And that's another free show at the Hexagon. Doors at 9, music at 10, 21 plus. A reminder to buy drinks on the stage side of the bar to support the bands. Very, very important. And again, we have to go to these shows. We have to keep the bands alive. We have to keep the venues alive. We have to do all that. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on this weekend. I'll post something official, but of course next Saturday, April 7th, is when my band, Off Duty Astronauts, is playing the Driftwood with Inner Toil and After Memphis. So that's probably a $5 cover, I would assume. Show starts at 9. come down, check us out, support it. That'd be awesome. Okay, so mini rant. This is a topic that's been battered around the last couple years. I mean, I'm sure it comes up every couple years, but the last couple years it's been in the ether a lot. And I was watching something today that kind of triggered this, because I really hadn't had any thoughts about this. But yeah, something I was watching just triggered it, and that's the subject of, is rock dead? Is rock music dead? I know a couple years ago Gene Simmons said something to that effect, and then there was a rebuttal from Dave Grohl. I don't remember exactly what that was, but and then I was watching, there's I suppose a show, maybe it's called a show, I don't know anymore, it's on YouTube. It's a few guys that get together and basically talk about Kiss every week. And it's called Three Sides of the Coin, because there are three hosts. And it's funny because two of the hosts, as I was watching this one, two of the hosts are from Minnesota. One of them still lives in Minnesota, I would assume Minneapolis. And that'll be relevant in a little bit. But they had on, and the reason I watched this was the guest they had on was Charlie Benante, who's the drummer and principal songwriter in Anthrax, which is one of my favorite national thrash bands. And they were talking, they were talking about Kiss and blah, 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 all this stuff. And then they were talking about, and as actually Charlie who asked the question of, on a national level, how come, some bands, and I'm sure he was referring to Metallica, it was thinly veiled reference to Metallica, how, some bands can tour the world and play stadiums, and other bands who are similar or started out in the same place can't, don't get to that level. And that went into a discussion about the, where rock died. And I actually watched another video earlier this week about that same subject. And this other guy that I've been watching lately, a guy named Rick Beato, who has a YouTube channel, was talking about, is rock dead? And he said rock died about, 2005, 2006, which, is probably true. But I was thinking about it, and because again, they, on the Kiss show with Charlie, they were talking about, because Anthrax is coming here in May. They're on the bill. The Slayer's final tour is coming through at the Emery, and they're on that bill. It's Slayer, Anthrax, Testament, Lamb of God, and Behemoth. So obviously that's going to sell out, and possibly because it's Slayer's final tour, or just because that's a killer bill. And again, that's something I'd like to see, because I'd like to see Anthrax again. I've seen them a few times. I've seen Slayer a couple times. I've seen Testament a few times. I've never seen Lamb of God. I would love to see Lamb of God. I just don't want to pay, $75 or whatever it's going to be to see Lamb of God. So, that being said, because that show sold out, and then they were debating about that, and anyway, I'm getting off topic. But it goes back to the theory of what happened to rock music, and they were talking about kind of the death of rock radio, which it's funny because I was having, on my ride home from practice last night with Rob, we were talking about this, and I was kind of like, well, yeah, I'm kind of surprised that commercial radio still exists. Like, is there a big enough market for people not listening to satellite radio or internet radio? Apparently there is, because there was a song where he listens to 93X, which, for those that don't know, used to be the metal station, is vastly no longer. And they were playing something that was like, should have been played on like KDWB or something. And I was like, what is this and why are they playing it in 93X? And he's like, they've been changing their format left and right. And so, I mean, it kind of brings on the death of rock radio. The guy on the show is from Minneapolis, was talking about KQ and how, they're a classic rock station, but they only play like 5 Rolling Stones songs, even though Rolling Stones have been recording for 55 fucking years. They only play 5 songs because, if they divert from that, then the audience will freak out and blah, blah, blah. And it's all about numbers. It's all about money. It's whatever. So I was thinking about all that. And thinking about, is rock dead? I think yes, in the sense that it'll never be as big as it was in the, let's say late 60s through early 90s. It'll never be that big again. Will rock ever die? I don't think so. Because, I mean, you heard just a portion of the mostly rock shows that are going on. There are local bands everywhere. Will any of those bands ever get to the level of a Metallica or a Foo Fighters or a U2? Probably not. But I don't think it'll ever die. Some form of rock music, whether it be, melodic death metal or underground punk or whatever, some form of rock music will always exist. Whether it'll never be the dominant music again, I don't think. But then I was thinking about it, and this is kind of what triggered it, and why I want to talk about this. You think about jazz. Okay, jazz music was pretty much the dominant music in the United States, at least from, 1910 till the mid-50s. I mean, going through, ragtime and the big band stuff, and then the cool jazz and the bebop stuff. I mean, jazz and the pop, your Frank Sinatra's and whatnot, which was still kind of, I don't want to say jazz based, but there was an alignment. That was the dominant music for 50 years until the mid-50s when Bill Haley and Elvis and Chuck Berry and Little Richard came along and disrupted everything, and then rock and roll, which became rock, became the dominant music. And if you think about it, it's had a good run. I mean, it's been, if according to this guy, if rock music died in 2006, that's 60 years that it's been pretty much the dominant music in this country. That's not a bad run. So I think what we have to do, instead of ever saying, rock is dead and woe is me and mourning it, we have to accept the fact that this is going to happen. And instead of trying to fight it, just kind of go with it. And I mean, obviously, if the bands are still, the big bands that are still touring, obviously, if you like them, go and support them, obviously. But also support your local bands. I mean, saying that the guy was from Minneapolis, is he going out and supporting local bands? I mean, because this is a Kiss podcast. They were talking about Kiss. They were talking about Aerosmith. They were talking about all these bands. So I'm like thinking, okay, he likes that kind of stuff. He should go out and support bands like 32 Headshots and Fatal Caliber and Outlaw Saint and, bands like that, and keep this whole thing going, this whole thing alive. So, do I have any other points? Shit. I don't think so. Basically, I mean, the gist of it is rock dead? Kind of. I mean, again, outside of, Iron Maiden and, Foo Fighters and Metallica, U2, maybe Radiohead, there really aren't a lot of like huge, big international rock bands anymore. Which might be okay. I mean, that might be fine. It might be, time for, whatever's going to come next, whether that be, country or EDM or, if hip hop kind of not makes a resurgence, but, whatever it is, that's fine. As long as we keep supporting our local scenes wherever we live. I happen to live in a city that has an awesome local scene, so it's not that difficult. As long as we keep supporting these bands and if rock, in 20 years boils down to everything on a local level, I'm okay with that, personally. Because eventually Metallica's going to retire, Iron Maiden's going to retire, U2's going to retire, Bruce Springsteen's going to retire. They can't play forever. So obviously at some point all these bands are going to have to go away, as morbid as that sounds. And then, what are we left with? But all that being said, the point is, go out, support your local scenes, because without local bands, there aren't national bands. Every national band was a local band at some point, with the exception of the Foo Fighters. But that's a whole different story. You can watch the documentary on Netflix, which I highly recommend you do, because it's a great documentary. Foo Fighters Back and Forth, I believe. But that being said, will rock ever die? I don't think so. I firmly believe that 100 years from now, 200 years from now, in whatever form music takes, there will be some 15-year-old in the middle of nowhere who will come across a copy of, the White Album or Back in Black or, the Black Album, and that will, spark something in that person to go out and want to get a guitar or start to play drums or sing. I don't think rock will ever truly die. It's too ingrained in everything. And the people, once you get a little taste of it, like I would have loved to have been alive the first time you heard like a distorted guitar, like first time you heard Satisfaction or You Really Got Me. And just hearing that sound and going, what is that? I need more of that, inject it in my veins. Once you get a taste of that, you don't let it go. You just don't. You might walk away for a little bit, but you always come back to it. And this is something I've said or thought. I don't know if I've ever actually said it. But now, to all you people, I'm saying it. And if you disagree, please tell me. But I believe whatever you latch onto musically, if you're a music person, because there are non-music people, whatever you latch onto musically between the ages of about 16 and 20, 21 in there, that's the music that you will always go back to, that will always feel comfortable. It'll feel like home. Even if you go away from it for a long time, which I did, because between 16 and 20, that's when I really got into like the heavier stuff, the thrash, the death metal, all that stuff. And I mean, there was a period where I didn't listen to that at all. But then, I'd be strolling through my music collection and see, Among the Living or something and be like, oh, I haven't listened to that in a while. And then it brings you right back. So as long as you have that, no. Will rock ever die? No. Is it dead? Possibly. And that's all I got. So, yeah, go and see a show this weekend. Do it. Go. Support your scene. Support your bands. Awesome.